Joining me from Lithium Australia's Adrian Griffin. Adrian, good to catch up. Nice to see you. How are you?
Very good, thanks, Andrew.
Good to hear, Adrian. Look, I understand you've been making some significant changes to the business on the back of COVID and some of the disruption there. Just talk us through what impact you've seen.
Oh, certainly. I guess it made us put the business under the microscope and look at where our near-term cash flow was going to come from and what things weren't going to produce cash in the short-term future. And we had a lot of activity going on in China, producing batteries there in commercial formats and testing them. Battery factories ground to a halt with COVID, and as a consequence, we've put our pilot plant that produces cathode powders on care and maintenance. But what we've done is retain the most important aspects of that business. So the R&D continues with respect to improving the cathode powders. The things that are very close to producing cash flow are the recycling business, EnviroStream Australia, and Soluna Australia, which is our battery storage business. That imports energy storage units and distributes them in Australia.
Adrian, what's the latest on your LieNA technology? What are you doing here? Just give us a reminder.
Oh, that's a really good question, in that LieNA is all designed around sustainability. The spodumene industry, spodumene concentrates being the main form of lithium concentrates, has a pretty poor track record when it comes to recovery of lithium units. And what you find is there's a lot of fine material produced on the way to getting it from mine site through to concentrate. And there's also a lot of material that is sub-grade, low grade, or contaminated with other materials. LieNA is capable of processing that fine material and the low grade concentrates and producing lithium chemicals. So it really is about sustainability. Get more out of the hole that you're digging at the moment, perhaps up to twice as many lithium units, effectively for the same mining cost. So that technology is capable of delivering that sort of outcome, and that's creating a lot of interest in the industry and with the Australian government, because the Australian government wants to see more royalties out of every square metre of ground that's mined.
Well, can you give us a bit more detail on that? How is the industry viewing this technology?
Well, I think everyone is on the sustainability bandwagon now, and you can't afford to continue to throw resources away. Now, that doesn't matter whether it's something that you've used or something that's brand new. In this case, it's something that's brand new. It's been dug out of the ground. It's been processed. The best part of it's been taken, and the bit that's not so good gets returned to tailings. Well, what we're trying to do is make sure it doesn't go back to tailings. Now, the recovery from most of those commercial operations, the recovery of lithium from mine through the concentrate, is generally only 50 to 70, 75%. So that gives you an idea as to how much never gets into the production cycle, and we want to change that.
Now, the energy storage business, Adrian, that's doing well of late. Some recent achievements there. Just talk us through what you've been up to.
Oh, certainly, Andrew. It took a little bit longer to get moving than we thought it would, and that was really about certification of the product and the Australian authorities. You have to have these things certified. I guess one of the advantages of having a certified product is people that buy it can get rebates in certain jurisdictions. So it makes it much more economically viable for the customer if you've got a certified product. So we've got through the certification program. On the back of that, we've achieved first sales and the first installation. There's an enormous amount of interest out there. The product that we're supplying, I've got to say, is one of the best on the market that will give households absolutely 100% fail-safe backup power. Now, most units don't do that, but this does, so it's blackout proof. Lovely stuff.
And how does this dovetail with the power distributors in Australia?
Well, it's interesting. What we're seeing in Western Australia is a solar boom. Just about everyone has PV panels on their rooftop, and those pound power into the grid during the daylight hours and nothing at night time. What that's doing is producing an enormous distribution load on the grid, and it's very difficult to balance the grid during daylight hours. And there's still a peak demand towards the end of the day going into nighttime. So that situation is very, very difficult to manage indeed. So what the government is doing is changing the tariff structure. To start with, there won't be what we've had for a long period of time here, so-called feed-in tariffs, where you generate the power and sell it to the grid. Those will slowly disappear, and then they're going to jack up the peak hour tariffs. And what they're doing that for is to encourage people to put in their own storage, harvest the energy during the day and use it at night. And that will allow them to balance that load on the grid. So we see that as the ideal opportunity for Soluna Australia. So that's the situation in Western Australia. And I guess most other Australian states are very similar.
And what's the end-of-life management for these units? How does that work?
Well, it's interesting in that we have a company, EnviroStream Australia, which happens to be Australia's only mixed battery recycler. So we're the only company operating in Australia, and for that matter, probably most parts of the world, that can vertically integrate most of those processes and give you a complete energy solution. So it's not just a matter of selling you a battery. At end of life, we can take it back. We can recycle the internal components of that and the battery metals, effectively providing material to regenerate those batteries. And indeed, we have regenerated batteries by recycling those sorts of materials and done that through our cathode plant in Brisbane. So we've taken it from recycled material right back to cathode powders, generated batteries out of it, and we can produce batteries by doing that as good as ones that you can buy off the shelf.
Right, so seeing some good momentum within the business, Adrian. What's the plan from here then for the remainder of the year?
Well, I think it is all about focusing on short-term cash flow. So we're devoting most of our management attention to the recycling division, EnviroStream Australia, and Soluna Australia, which is the battery division, battery sales. And we're going to see, I think, a quantum shift with respect to the way batteries are treated in Australia, in that sometime in the next couple of months, there will be a stewardship scheme introduced. That stewardship scheme will charge a levy at the point of purchase of a battery. That levy will go to the Battery Stewardship Council and then get distributed to the people that collect and process, recycle those batteries. That effectively will commoditise the waste material because it'll have a value, and that will see us collect a lot more of those than we currently do. So we can see a boom in supply, and we're gearing up for that. We have surplus capacity in the plant that's in Melbourne, and we're looking very hard at duplicating that in other jurisdictions.
And are you targeting to be cash flow positive by the December quarter? Is that one of your ambitions?
Oh, yeah, it is. Indeed, it might be just a little bit later than that with respect to EnviroStream, but certainly Soluna is looking pretty good with the demand there, so that'll be cash flow positive in the near-term future.
Good to get an update, Adrian. Nice to see you. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Andrew.